Chapter 2: Storytelling in a Lockdown.
Before we fully dive into that, let's ask ourselves, what exactly is storytelling?
Well, I guess it depends on the story. If it's more human interest, bring out the character in that story. If it's more informational or data-driven, have the stats in there that you need. If it's more of a problem that's community-wide, like a public health epidemic, let's, delve into not only the data, but let's see if we can, reach out to those people involved in the intervention and maybe some of the people who are impacted.
That's the voice of radio journalist John Smith, who's a veteran storyteller at WAER-FM, Syracuse's NPR affiliate. Webster's dictionary tells us storytelling is the telling or writing of stories. Pretty simple at its core, but that definition doesn't tell us the importance of people to what a storyteller does. With people locked in their houses for days on end, a certain amount of creativity was required to tell stories that connect.
We just had to be resourceful in getting interviews by mainly contacting people by phone. There were no in-person press conferences after a certain time. Everybody was, shielding themselves and, staying away. I mean, without that interaction.
The biggest one was finding ways to be creative in letting my audience know that I'm dealing with the same stuff as them. And the more open and transparent I could be with what I had at my disposal in terms of resources, the better I felt like I was connecting with the viewer and they were understanding the story, even with the obstacles we face.
Journalists needed to adapt amidst the lockdown, regardless of whether or not they worked for a local or national outlet. CBS News' Steve Hartman is one of the most famous and skilled storytellers on a national scale, and his signature sign-off should tell you right then and there that he had to adapt.
Steve Hartman, on the road, in Uniondale, New York.
Of course, considering travel restrictions and lockdown rules, going on the road wasn't exactly an easy ordeal. But Hartman made the most of it.
It seems like maybe you've got a little shorter fuse.
I know that. I'm trying to work on it, but...
How's your quarantine going?
Not very good.
Cute, right? No. Did King George think it was cute when his little brat spilled tea in the harbor? Yeah, it says here, if you do not sign, we will declare war on the parents. And there's no signature. So I assume war is happening?
Yeah, a war broke out that day.
You've banned all entry to your room because of coronavirus?
Because of coronavirus and the revolution.
This is every day.
Jackson now considers himself a separate state with his own national anthem, which he appropriated from the country of Tajikistan. He plays it on a constant loop as torture for his dictator parents.
Those were snippets from a piece about children having an increased sense of rebellion during the lockdown, with interviews conducted over Zoom. Hartman's stories about people, events, you name it, that have impacted local communities have been nationally broadcast for years. Another story that has been going on for years is the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Syracuse. But Smith recalls telling us about it when things began to shut down.
Just a day or so prior, I think the county executive was saying, we're just monitoring numbers. We're not seeing the numbers like in other parts of the states right now. And then before you know it, it was just obviously data-driven, that there was just an immediate need to prevent all of the mass type of gatherings and the celebrations and bars that go along with St. Patrick's Day and all of that. I think even one of my colleagues was second-guessing, I think as he said it, if the bars were closed down around Syracuse at this time, that, there might be rioting in the streets to protest it. But there was nothing of the like, and that everything, was just shut down.
St. Patrick's Day wasn't the only noteworthy day that had a different look to it due to COVID. For some, noteworthy days that took years to accomplish were spoiled. Those, of course, were graduations. The in-person flair of those ceremonies took a hit due to COVID, if they even were in person. But Hartman dug deep to find, in his own words, how pomp was maintained under COVID circumstances.
When Gabrielle Pierce's graduation got canceled, her dad, Torrance, was almost as upset as she was.
It really just broke my heart, but what do you do?
Well, you thought of something.
I think I did. I said, well, I guess we have to do it in the driveway.
So right there, where they usually park their Chevy,
Graduation girl, yo.
Torrance graduated his daughter from Xavier University of Louisiana on a rented stage and podium in front of friends, family, and passing motorists. At least one whiz-by graduation. Here in Indianapolis, it's cap and gone. The Speedway hosting a ceremony where kids can cruise the track in their own vehicles, presumably at a reasonable speed, and pick up their diplomas on the way out.
It's not the memories they thought they were going to have, but it's something different and unique that they'll probably remember forever.
Scott Cumrow is band director at Fergus Falls High School in Minnesota. Here he is playing for his high school's virtual graduation. All 22 parts. It took Scott 2 full days to make this video for his students.
Not to take anything away from St. Patrick's Day and graduation, but those got national attention even when it wasn't a pandemic. Small things that we often take for granted made for great stories during COVID. For example, as CNY Central's Tommy Sladek tells, a basketball hoop.
They took down the hoops to basketball nets because that's the situation we were in, and they were worried about social gatherings on the basketball court. So the fact that I watched people take down hoops outside for health and safety reasons, that was like a true, I can't believe this is real moment.
Syracuse, New York is a town in large part known for its basketball pedigree. The shot clock was invented here, and the SU basketball programs are very popular among Central New York residents. Kids are no exception to that, and that made telling that story even more meaningful on Sladek.
At the end of the day, especially in the city of Syracuse, the basketball court has been, it's a haven for a lot of kids. It's a haven for a lot of kids to find an outlet to use their energy, one that's healthy, one that's safe for some of these kids that are growing up in rougher neighborhoods. And to have that stripped and taken away, it was that tough feeling of this is something that is largely so positive. And as someone that loves sports and obviously covers it full time now, played basketball growing up, to see that go away, it broke my heart a little bit. But it also, I understood why they were trying to take the measures they were taking, because end of the day, the basketball courts are where a lot of kids gather, and that would have kept them there.
Sladek referred to that story as the favorite he told over the first few months of COVID. Not because it was a cheery one or one that made earth-shattering changes, rather, the sheer madness of it all.
Favorite story in the first few months, just because of it was a true moment of, this is so bizarre and I can't believe this is real life. And that was me going out and about in the city and following around the city workers as they took down the basketball hoops.
Whether it's kids stuck inside when they want to play outside with their buddies, St. Patrick's Day parades getting canceled, graduations online, or basketball hoops coming down in neighborhood parks, stories had a completely different look. How journalists told those stories, the subjects, it all changed as a result of COVID, lockdown restrictions, Zoom, anything you can think of. But almost 3 months after the pandemic began, one story broke that completely captivated the world. So much so that COVID almost became an afterthought.